Welcome back, dude and dudettes, to another wild episode of Send It Mate. We're here to talk about all things hunting and outdoors. And today, we've got something that'll keep your gear running smoother than a dingo's getaway.
That's right. Our show is brought to you by High Caliber, the gun and knife oil company that knows how to keep your firearms and blades in tip-top shape.
High Caliber is like the secret sauce for hunters, anglers, and outdoorsy folk everywhere. It's like the magic potion that makes your gun and knives happier than a dog with two tails.
You know, guys, I've been using High Caliber oil for a while now, and let me tell you, it's the duck's nuts. My rifle practically sings a lullaby when I take it out hunting.
And speaking of lullabies, ever tried sneaking up on a deer with a squeaky gun? It's a prime way to end up with no venison in the freezer. You'll be hungrier than a vegan at a bacon festival.
Absolutely. But with High Caliber oil, your gun will be quieter than a ninja in moonlight. You'll be stalking your prey with the grace and stealth of a mountain lion.
High Caliber doesn't just keep things quiet, it also prevents rust and corrosion, so you won't find your gear looking like it spent a season at the bottom of a creek.
That's right, and for you knife enthusiasts out there, High Caliber has got you covered too. Your trusty blade will slice through anything smoother than butter on a hot biscuit.
So, folks, don't let your gear become a rusty, squeaky mess. Head on over to highcaliber.com.au and grab a bottle of their oil today.
And if you use the code SENDITMATE at checkout, you'll get a special discount. I say again, use the code SENDITMATE for all your oil slick, stealthy hunting needs.
Thanks to High Caliber, you'll be sending it in style and silence.
So, gear up, oil up, and send it, mate. High Caliber, the ultimate oil for the ultimate hunter.
Yellow. What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? We're back again. Another week of Send It Mate podcast.
We're back.
I'm
Back
Caleb.
again.
I'm Josh.
And I'm Ryan.
And we've already said we're a Send It Mate podcast.
We
So
are.
let's get into it.
Send it, mate.
It's a special week. We've got another guest. It's been a few weeks since we had a guest, actually.
It has.
So
Last time
we're
was
due,
Keegan.
and we've got a good one for you tonight. We've got Rob, a.k.a. the Venison Diplomat.
How you going, bud?
How's it going?
What up?
Good,
Good,
good.
man.
For a second, then we were talking about some sort of gun or something, but like AK what?
Yeah.
AK the Venison Diplomat, is that a new brand?
That's
yeah.
a nice way of him saying, Caleb, you fucked that up.
Would you hunt?
Yeah, that's right. I'm trying not to offend him.
I haven't reached my optimum amount of drinks yet.
Would you hunt with an AK?
Ooh.
Oh, he's right off the bat. No. I'm too PC. I'm too PC. I wouldn't know what to do with it either. You know? I wouldn't know
If I
what
was
to do.
going to
Really
hunt
get
in
one.
an AK, I'd have to go in a full Russian military outfit and like just play the part, speaking a Russian
Speaking
Big
an
fur
accent.
hat.
accent. Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if
Made
it's
of
summer. It'd be like
kangaroo leather.
real life cosplay for hunting.
This is the part
I'll
where
be
I'll-
honest. Actually, you mentioned that. I actually would like one day to make like a vest out of deer and actually hunt in a deer vest. But I know how
Yes.
controversial that would be because a lot of that stuff in the US with the turkey hats and all the stupid stuff people are doing when
Yeah.
they're out and getting shot. But I would like one day to do something like that. I reckon that'd be cool.
If you incorporated
Natural
some,
camouflage. Yeah.
if you incorporated like some hunter's orange in there, or just wear an orange hat or something, yeah, you probably get away with it.
That's not authentic though, is it? You'd want to like wear the scalp of the deer and really like real like cover yourself in mud, a couple of sticks and twigs.
Settle down, Rambo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're gonna do it,
it's not
do it all
Rambo,
that.
That's a Predator. Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, predator. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is a cool idea, but like you said, you're just going to get shot by someone thinking you're a deer. So
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, hopefully not.
there must be a way. There's got to be a way to identify yourself.
It's funny. That's like, you know how we were talking about trophy hunting, like extreme trophy hunting's changed a little bit to the ones that look a bit weird or have like the deformities. So Rob, if you're out and you're covered in a deer pelt, they think that you're just like a fucked up deer. You're more likely to get shot because they think that you've got some anomaly with you.
Oh, look, there's this unique deer that walks on two
Yeah.
legs.
It's got
It's true though. You're right. Like pale, coloured fallow are popular, or chocolate fallow, and
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. And deformities in the antlers. Yeah.
That's a big one. I've seen a lot of that pop up, the old deformity in the antlers.
More so in the States, I think.
Yeah, it's definitely an American thing. But I've seen a couple of guys over here that have posted videos of stuff that they've found, and I suppose that's the next step, isn't it? From once you get the big rack,
The typical sort of rack, yeah, or a large scoring rack, yeah.
Yeah.
People, like to go obscure. But
well,
There you go.
you're a bit obscure, aren't you, Josh?
sometimes
Yeah, he's got a deformed antler.
it's three-pronged.
Three pronged.
Yeah, he only grows them. He only grows it once a year as well.
But it stays hard for 9 months of the year.
Yeah. That's actually one of the most awesome facts I learned about it. Like they throw themselves when they grow those antlers, they'll go into like osteoporosis every year, taking all that calcium from their bones and from the soil and that, like from the food, just to grow this weaponry. I reckon that's commitment, isn't it? Really,
That is.
to be the top dog.
100%.
Biggest antler gets the hottest girl.
Although, I mean, standing in front of a mirror for 12 hours a day pumping iron is also a big commitment.
Yeah, that's right.
Same equivalent, isn't it? Yeah.
Although, Josh, you're not the biggest stag, are you? You're sort of like the little guy.
That's all right, mate. I got abs.
Always
All do. They're under there somewhere.
under that giant jacket.
All right, let's move on to
Sweet. All right. Well, let's get these questions out of the way, Rob. Then we can get crazy with the rest of the questioning. Now, where are you actually from?
Everywhere. I'm from New South Wales, I'll say, but I grew up in Western Sydney, Westie, on kind of fringe of the city, and then I've lived all over kind of rural New South Wales. And I think the last time I counted, it was over 20 different locations in the last 10 years that I've lived.
Holy
kind
crap.
of work and uni and stuff. Yeah, I've moved around a bit, but I now live on the Sapphire Coast, we call it, which is the south coast of New South Wales, in the Bega Valley, which is a cracking part of the world. So yeah.
Yeah, nice. Cool. Well, let's
Do you
get rolling.
surf?
Do you surf?
I have a surfboard. That doesn't mean I surf. It's one of the things I guess we'll get to, but I'm a epic hobbyist. I kind of try to do a little bit of everything, and I'm terrible at most things, but I'm definitely not the worst at them.
Yeah.
And that's kind of my goal in life. That's my motto. Like that's kind of what I go by. It's like I just don't want to be the worst at anything, but I don't really want to be the best at it either, because I reckon being the best at something just takes way too much commitment. And I just don't want to be picked last on the footy team, you know, that kind of person.
You just want to experience everything as well.
Yeah, give it a
So
crack.
I have a surfboard and I can paddle out and I can sometimes almost get on the board. But
Oh, really?
yeah.
I bought a surfboard
yeah.
once. I didn't even get it in the water. I had it.
How do you not get in the water?
I bought it. It was a steal. I'm like, yeah, fuck yeah. Because I used to bodyboard all the time and go out surfing with mates, but I never actually had my own board. And I bought it, and it sat in the shed for 12 months. And then I was like, well,
Sounds like a lot of your hobbies.
most of my hobbies I do at least once.
It's a beautiful.
I mean, can you call it a hobby? I don't know, but you can at least.
I like to call it an
dabble, you
experience.
dip your toe.
Yeah.
Now, Ryan's hobby is just buying cheap shit and then not using it. That is a hobby in
My
itself.
hobby is collecting hobbies.
Yeah, well, I mean, we definitely resonate there.
Yeah, man.
I've tried to invent terms, and one of them is hobby sick, and you and me are the same. Like
Hobby
we just
sick.
keep wanting to do something different. We pick up another thing and say, "Oh, that's my hobby now. I'm going to learn how to surf." You buy the board, it sits in the shed. You don't do it, you sell the board on Gumtree.
Yeah.
And it kind of just keeps going around.
Fuck
and
yeah,
around
I'm
in
stealing that.
circles.
Hobby sick. That's awesome.
Hobby sick. Yeah, well, it's hobby sickness is kind of the disease that we have.
It's got to learn how to make a profit out of that, and you'll be right.
Write a book.
All right, Rob, what is your favourite food, mate?
Peanut butter. Yeah.
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't even need to,
Out of the tub
man,
from a
I'm-
spoon.
Is that
straight up. Yeah. I eat
Fucking
it
A.
as is. Yeah.
Crunchy or
and
smooth?
It's bad. Both, whatever I can sneak, but I'll go crunchy as a
Preference.
primary staple.
yeah.
I've kind of now I had to go to I just get a teaspoon a day, and I just kind of have to stick with that because free reign
We like smashing a whole jar and then not being able to shit for a week.
But it's we've got I just do that too. I don't know. Pretty oily and full of protein and fat. We've even got like different jars. There's like the jar for the dog, the jar for me, the jar for the baby that we use to give it a bit of And I kind of like, I have mine, which goes through really quickly. So I have to kind of dip into the other ones a little bit and sneak a little bit here and there just to
Like cut half
to
of that
keep
one and
me-
half of that will
keep
put them in
going,
your
yeah.
jar.
Well, hopefully the dog one's not getting double dipped too many times when you.
Well, and that's what happens purposely. Wife will let him lick the spoon and then put it back in and swirl it around and go, "You can't touch that one now." That doesn't stop me. Yeah, like,
Okay, so peanut butter addict, I think, is what.
yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm addicted. Yeah, definitely.
Far out.
Second to coffee, I'd say. Yeah, coffee's probably a second. Yeah,
Oh, mate, I'm definitely with you on that one.
Yep.
to the point
100%.
where like I do a bit of bush poetry as well, and I've written
Yeah.
like a poem about coffee, like an ode to the barista. I call
That is
it, and
true
it's
love.
like,
Oh, is,
oh man, absolutely.
do you want to fire some
completely
verses
addicted.
at us of this ode to coffee?
Go on. Fire- go on.
I'll give you at the end. Yeah,
Go
we'll
for
finish
it.
off with it if you want.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we remember.
Done.
Yeah,
All right, we'll
absolutely.
come back around to it. Ryan's going to make a note.
I'm making a note right now. You're not getting out of that one.
I've got to try and remember it.
You're right, man. Well,
It's like you can remember thousands of song lyrics, but to remember something you've written yourself can be quite challenging. So yeah, but I'll get there. I'll be right.
beautiful. All right, what was your first job, Rob?
I worked first job, KFC. KFC 14 9 months. I that's Western Sydney for you. Like you achieve success when you get your first job as soon as you can. You buy, I guess at the time, like maybe a phone or something like that, some way to communicate, and a car, and that's it. Like you've made it in life and you're done. So yeah, I got a job at KFC in the whatever I worked there, 9 to 12 months. I did so much damage to myself, like physically from eating all the food, because they throw it all out at the end of the night.
Oh.
And I was born on that kind of, that kind of message from my parents and their parents and their parents before, that you don't waste food.
Yeah.
And so this stuff's going in the bin. So I'll, 1 for me, 3 for the bin kind of rule.
Yeah.
And when you're 14, 9 months growing and you're super hungry all the time,
Yeah.
just pounding it away. Like we would do the craziest shit. We get like zinger wraps or whatever. Sorry, what are those? I can't even remember now. So I've never eaten it since. But you get wraps and you put like 3 different bits of chicken on, a couple of different types of cheeses, heaps of different sauces, maybe a piece of lettuce just to get your salad intake. And the concoctions we would come up with were fucking wild. It was
Like
a crazy time.
Heart attack in a bun.
And since then, I repel to go near the food, because when you can slide over the floor like Tom Cruise across the entire kitchen, there's something wrong with what you're eating. It's just oil and stuff. It was in your skin in the morning. I had to get a stick and scrape it out of my boots. It was it was rough.
I can imagine just the shenanigans that would have gone on though with the floor like that, slipping and sliding everywhere.
We used to, and the food stuff as well. Like I think it was who was brave enough to do that next challenge, like to make something really wild out of the food, like putting potato and gravy on top of this, on top of that, making layered, trifle type concoctions with chicken and.
You're only young once.
Yeah, it was. Oh, that's it. But honestly, it took me. I would have put on normal kid. I probably would have put on 10, 15, maybe 20 kilos in that year I was working there. And you imagine how long that takes to take off.
Yeah.
Like it always takes. It can take the rest of your life sometimes to get rid of that kind of
that's
damage.
crazy.
So
Bloody hell. Well, you've put me off KFC for a while anyway.
I don't even know how you
yeah,
eat it as an adult.
Oh no, I'm pretty hungry now.
How do you eat it as an adult,
Yeah, I
man?
know.
Like you have like one fucking piece of chicken and then you don't shit right for a fucking month.
Yeah.
I mean, some of us actually have proper digestion. I don't know what's wrong with you, but
I could go someplace that you don't want me to go right now, but I won't.
is it finger licking good? I have no idea where you're going with that.
That was
We'll
a
move
zinger,
on.
Caleb.
We'll move on. It's not about me. It's about Rob. All right, Rob, if you could trade places with anyone in the world, who would that be?
oh man, you've got me now. God, who's my idols and stuff? I mean, because I'm so into hunting at the moment, I just wish I could do it at every waking moment. It'd be somebody that does it for their lifestyle, like a Steve Ranella or someone like that, Remy Warren, or someone who's just out there, just covering all bases, fishing, hunting, foraging, talking about it, being, doing it all the time. That's their entire life. They write about it.
Yeah.
They do,
Making a living from it, basically.
Maybe, yeah. Well, yeah.
That's the dream.
I guess, probably even to the point where, like I find that Aussies can imitate other people much better than what Americans and others can imitate us. So like, Steve Rinelli goes like, when I go hunting, I think I can imagine myself doing that, as a job, start of the episode. When I came on this podcast, that kind of.
Then you're going to end up with some sort of Russell Coit type show.
Oh, man, I don't know, I've thought about it in my head because, creative types are a bit like that, where we kind of think of all the different things we could do. And I've definitely, the venison diplomat is definitely an idea that I've got about this person like slapstick kind of making their way through hunting and fishing and foraging.
But you have to do everything in a suit.
Expert. No. Pretty much. Yeah. Well, maybe. Yeah. That's part of it, isn't it? Like part of it's like wearing the right attire for the type of hunt. So if I go foraging for mushrooms, I've got to wear the bloody Donegal tweed hat, puffer vest with the flannelette shirt. I've got to get my Labradoodle and my fancy switchblade that I got in like France on a cheese tour, and go out and cut the mushrooms back, decorate them, and get some pine fronds and cones, and get a perfect photo, and then post it on the socials. And hashtag the shit out of it. Just like, Mother Nature provides, and, mushrooms and foraging, and I live wild and I eat wild, and just do that.
Take a shit ton of photos.
I think that's part of it, isn't it, really? Yeah.
Take a shit ton of photos of you, like, making a fly from scratch out of, like, timber and a boat, but then actually putting the camera down and using a fucking Zippo.
It's called a Bic lighter, man. That's it. Fuck. We're not in the 1700s. $2.
That sort of stuff just really, it really kind of makes me laugh. And you see these people go like, like people from say Sydney, and they go, went out foraging today and got a kilo of mushrooms. Like Mother Nature provides. I love it. And they've just driven like a 6-hour return journey to get a bag of fucking fungus, like tasty toe jam, and they then they cook it all up in butter and heaps of herbs, and then add like cream sauce to it and pasta, and just completely bastardize the thing to the point where it could be anything. Yeah, and it's like, what are you talking about? It's cool that you've done it, and it's great that you're spending time outdoors, but you're not actually achieving anything sustainable.
Did it for the gram, man.
No, well, you want to look at the carbon footprint of that, driving 6 hours and you beat up old Volkswagen Beetle.
Yeah. That's how you do extreme foraging, though. You go out in like your RAV4 all-wheel drive into forest roads after 20 mil of rain, and you get bogged. Like that's.
Caleb was once there in his X-Trail.
Mate, I was once there in company vehicle.
I'm there now. I'm in a bloody Toyota Corolla, 2003 Toyota Corolla. Around state forests, and I have to just hike more and carry more stuff with me, and just because I used to have work cars like 4-wheel drives that I would take. Hunting. Don't tell the old bosses. But I take them out bush. Like I've almost lost a couple down some slopes and stuff. But now I just go in the Corolla, the second car. Yeah.
You'll be right. Just whack some mad muddies on it. And,
lift 35.
Yeah.
You're good.
Just tell everyone.
I just weigh it down. I just weigh down the rear power with the esky and all the hunting gear and stuff, I guess. And
it adds up, doesn't it?
It works. Yeah, it works. You can camp in the back if you get really cold or wet. But it'll fit a swag and esky and your hunting gear for sure. Who needs all that kind of Toyota like Land Cruiser type stuff? I'd love to have it, but 100 and something grand just to go like hunting 5Ks in further than somebody else, it seems like a big investment.
If you're keen enough, like you said, you just, all right, if you hit something, you're not going to get through, you're parking up and you're just walking further. So, I mean, I've done it, having had work vehicles for the best part of 8 years, and all of those were two-wheel drive except one. Which, I had an all-wheel drive Outback, Subaru Outback, which got a bit further, but to be honest, I'm pretty happy now that I've got my own full drive and I can actually get places. But like, you just adapt. And I didn't say too much until now that I'm out of those jobs, but I used to take those things everywhere and get them airborne over cattle grates.
Oh, we used to flog the shit
I used to flog the absolute fuck out of them.
It went your Subaru.
That's why you don't buy that stuff secondhand. Options, because I know that blokes like me have been driving them.
I once there's a property we went. We just used to shoot on. No hunting, just shooting on there, target practice. And out of the blue, this downpour happened one night. And we're like, stuff this. Let's not stay the night. Let's head home. And I'm in a two-wheel drive, not front-wheel drive, Hyundai i40. and there's just clay soil. And so this top layer of soil is just all turned to the slipperiest mud. So to get out of this property, I was redlining the thing. Like front wheels are just spinning and I'm just doing 45 degrees the whole way down this track.
Just small touches. I've had to do that, obviously going down the side of a slope where you lose traction and you just got to kind of keep the wheels spinning and accelerate, just to slowly pull yourself across the slope to get onto like a plateau. I've done that a couple of times. And
it's like slow motion drift.
Yeah, that's also part of it. I think when you do that once or twice and the property owner sees the big skid marks that you left down the side of the bank, he's like, yeah, maybe next time, do you mind just parking at the bottom and hiking in?
Till you're in something a bit more fit for purpose.
Your Subaru went through, 1.5 foot deep river actually once.
It was past the door seals, man.
Yeah, probably deeper than foot and a half. Yeah, it was impressive at getting in and getting out.
And like up a slippery bank on the other side, I just thought, stuff it, let's do it. It worked. Thankfully.
I think part of it is just proving that you can, like, we're all engaged in hunting media, and we see all the bells and whistles that you can achieve in the industry, but like you can do it with very little if you just kind of allow yourself to do it with very little. And I'm challenging myself with that stuff because I'm the kind of person, we talked about it before we started, who just buys, like, just straight away goes, oh, I think I need one of those, and goes on and finds it either brand new or secondhand. Yep. And I'm trying to kind of re-challenge it and go, do I really, like, can I just keep doing this for a while with what I've got? Do I really need to invest even more?
I actually
think the enjoyment not in being out there rather than the gear that you have.
I personally find I get a real kick out of the progression of starting with something, secondhand, and then slowly this progression of upgrading. And you give yourself this little, like, reward every so often. You use this thing for a while and you milk it for all it's worth, and you go, I want to get a new one of these, and it's an upgrade, and you're like, oh, this feels good. And then you can just keep upgrading. Whereas if you start off with the shiniest, brand new, amazing thing straight out the gates, even, it's I don't know.
Hey, I was listening to that one the other day. Sometimes your first, you need to revisit. So,
but I don't know. I suppose it can be something to be said for buying something amazing and never having to buy anything ever again, though.
Oh, I think we complicate it. As we progress, like you were saying, you buy more things or better things, and you complicate it in the end, and you just sort of like you end up with all this stuff, and you take more stuff, and it's not actually adding to the enjoyment or the fulfillment of the hunt. Instead, it's adding this complex sort of variable, and you just I actually find it detracts now from the experience.
You can have too much gear.
You can.
Definitely.
You can have too much gear. Shit that you don't need.
I think there's a guy, I can't remember his first name, but Craigow, New Zealander, who he's been hunting, older fellow who's been hunting for years and years, and he writes a fair bit. Reading his stuff, and he's kind of that big believer in, he's got an exact terminology, and I wish I remembered it right now, but it's basically like reducing it down to your absolute essential gear, and that's part of the adventure and the challenge. So he goes like one knife, gun with scope, basically like one set of clothes that is on his body, and maybe wet weather, and maybe like a poncho or something to kind of throw over him overnight, and he'll go out and do these kind of weekend hunts with the bare minimum. Yeah, and just as like the challenge. Can't say I'm there, but it's pretty, like, I still take the swag and the creature comforts like that. Exactly. And I love boiling a coffee in the morning before I start and everything, but he goes like full on just essentials: water, gun, knife, clothes.
Minimalist.
Yeah, that's too much. Coffee in the morning is an essential. Definitely. Maybe two.
Yeah.
I think it's like KISS, keep it simple, stupid. Like, pack to your needs, but no more. This is something that backpack hunting, I'm sure, appeals to all of us, is because of the simple nature of it and the effort required to get through those elements and then come out rewarded sometimes.
Yeah, it's a challenge.
Yeah. And if you want something like a creature comfort, you have to carry it. So
yeah. And it's the adventure. Like, I don't know about you guys, but every single hunt I've been on has been slightly different to the one before, because you don't walk the same way, and you don't go. I mean, we don't do a lot of tree stand sitting in Australia where like they have to in the US, where they sit on small properties in the same spot the whole time. We're all just off cruising around, looking, finding new spots. Sometimes you get a honey hole and you will revisit, and because you know and you're familiar with it, but you're pretty much walking a different trail every time. And I think that's probably the best thing about it.
For
about hunting. It's like it's choose your own adventure every time. And anyone can say, I've hiked the bloody, trails in Tasmania or somewhere, like all these really cool things. They've done exactly the same as everybody else has done.
Yeah,
we're doing something different every bloody time. And no one else has done it before.
That's
100%.
That's a good way of looking at it, man.
Cool. All right, let's keep rolling through these questions. Rob, have you got kids?
I've won. Yep. My first, obviously. I've won, and it's my first. Yep. A little girl. She's almost a year now. Yeah. So it's been a whirlwind. It's definitely you get that. You guys have got children, or like
two of us.
So yeah. So it's that, adding that extra thing into life that you have to obviously balance with everything else, and you want to balance with everything else.
Yeah.
And then it's like, I'm so excited about where she could possibly be in the future and coming out hunting with me and all this kind of stuff, that sometimes you got to be like, wait a minute, this is pretty cool right now. I better just enjoy this while it lasts. And once she's come out with me, like my wife and I, and went out, put little earmuffs on her and went to try to do a bit of spotlight rabbit shooting, but it got very cold very quickly, and it starts to get very dark very quickly.
Yeah.
And it kind of gets to where they would normally be in bed, and it makes it a bit difficult. But I have children. That's the answer to the question. I have one, and I own a dog as well. I guess they count, don't they? These days, the vet bills. He's more expensive to us than the baby is, to be honest.
What dog is it?
It's a Labradoodle. I just said before.
I thought that was a joke.
I
Actually is.
Actually have one.
Yeah. I shave him. We shave him right down to the skin now. He's like this little kind of. He looks like a little pointer almost. See, Labradoodles are normally fluffy. They've got fluffy heads and fluffy tails, and I'm not a big fan of that cut, and they get very dreaded. And he comes out into the bush or out to the beach, and they just get covered in bees and sand and all this stuff, and none of it falls out because of the type of their hair. So,
that's too much.
So, two children.
Very good. All right, Rob, what's the most dangerous thing you've ever done?
Most dangerous. I wouldn't say I'm an adrenaline junkie, but like I've, and again back to this hobby sick thing I talked about. I've tried a little bit of everything, and probably like motorbike riding. I got into that, and I owned a bike in Sydney. And so I reckon that's pretty dangerous, riding a motorbike, like a road bike in Sydney, particularly when you're on your L's. In New South Wales, you've got certain CC limits. So you've got a small, like 250 or 300 CC bike, and splitting traffic and going in between cars and stuff. None of them know you're there because you're so quiet. That was, I almost think that, and that's probably why I kind of got away from it. I now know how to ride a motorbike. I know I can do it the rest of my life. It's like riding a push bike. So I kind of got out of it because I reckon it was pretty dangerous, and it was very useful in somewhere like Sydney where you can just park anywhere, split traffic, go down the shoulder. Like at one point I was working on construction sites, and I had 7 different sites that I had to go to in a day. I'd jump on the bike, laptop in the pack, and zip between all 7 sites, and everyone was amazed. It's just like, how are you getting around all these places? How are you doing it? It's like through like motorbike, because most people, it takes them over an hour to commute 20 Ks or something.
Yeah, that would be insane.
I say that, but I've done a bit of stuff in New Zealand, like a bit of bungee jumping and skydiving and stuff, but none of those things are really, would you consider dangerous? Like the odds are so
controlled environment, I guess, to a degree, versus the crazy drivers of Sydney.
That's out of your control.
We're from Adelaide, man, so traffic is just nothing compared to Melbourne.
Yeah,
and Sydney.
I get pissed off if I've got to drive for more than half an hour. It's just like
I'm not really I'm not really afraid of heights either. So I guess I don't know if any of you've done any hikes in Tasmania, but I did some hikes with mates. The Overland Track, which is kind of like a 5-6 day hike from Cradle Mountain down to Lake Sinclair.
Yeah, I know the one.
There's a little side trail you can do to this place called the Acropolis, which are these big columns of rock, like, I don't know, 100+ meters, even more, like high above the ground below. We jumped out across these rocks. You had to jump like a couple of meter gaps. And I jumped out to the furthest one, and literally it's 200+ meter drop on either side of it. It was crazy. That's probably the most dangerous thing I've done.
That is fucked.
I don't know why I did it, but
let's go.
What's the place called?
It's the Acropolis.
The Acropolis.
On the Overland Track. Yeah, it's like a little side trail. awesome. And like you could see the storm that was coming in that night that we knew was coming. You could see it from hundreds of k's away coming from the south. It's like epic southerly and blue sky. You could just see this thing coming, this big front from the Antarctic. Yeah.
Wow.
So that's probably it. Afterwards, looking at the photos, going, did I really do that? Like all my mates are sitting closer to the camera and I'm the one at the back, you know, all 6 of us dotted out. It's kind of like, it was like a boy band photo, you know, like shittest boy band ever. But yeah.
I like it. Hey, what's the best piece of advice you've been given?
Oh man. Yeah, that's funny. Like I reckon I've had that many kind of small mentors in life. I think I got a fair bit of good advice from a Greek mate that I met through like the construction industry in Sydney. You know, one of those kind of unlikely friendships where you got this middle 40s kind of bloke, just completely different, slick hair, beautiful teeth, like great smile, like, you know, perfectly sculpted beard kind of guy. And then there's me, the kind of ratty mid-20s kind of ginger bearded engineer who's working with him, and he knows everything and knows the construction industry. I don't know anything, but he would always give me these one-liners and stuff of advice around like property and money and that kind of stuff. Just really unlikely friendship from completely different backgrounds. I'm trying to think of something like specific, like some sort of little seed of wisdom.
Yeah.
But these days, I think I'm just kind of making my own up, really. Like I've called myself the Shakespeare of hunting, just so you know.
Yeah.
I'm coming up with all these different words that no one's ever created before, like hobby sickness. And I've got a few other ones that I've been kind of working on.
Yeah, self-titled. Well, I suppose I better ask you, how did you come up with Venison Diplomat?
I actually, when we were traveling, me and my wife took a couple of weeks off and traveled in a van with the dog down the south coast. And I'd never been down here before. I'd been everywhere else in New South Wales, and we're kind of looking for somewhere to move and live permanently. And we actually landed in the town I live in now. And I was just sitting in the van one day, and I don't even know what it was. I wasn't on Instagram, wasn't on any of that stuff. And I was just thinking like that we're missing something with this whole thing. Like everyone talks about venison diplomacy, but then no one's ever offered me venison to eat. Like everyone talks about how like venison diplomacy is also like sharing hunting experiences and knowledge of other people, but no one had ever helped me with it. And I just kind of saw this industry as this like unreachable, unattainable thing that existed, like a secret club that you had to know the secret signs to get in. You had to wear camo. You had to do the binocular thing, and then someone knows that you're kind of, test the wind.
Secret
like you had to do all
Yeah,
these kind of things.
You got to know the secret handshake.
Yeah, the secret handshake to get in. And so I was like, I just kind of say, oh, you know what? Like maybe someone coming in new is the perfect person to be the diplomat. Like, because if I want the industry to be like that, I can whinge about how it's not like that, and there aren't people out there like that. When there actually are, I just didn't know.
Yeah.
I can whinge about it, or I could get in there and try and maybe be an influence for positive change in it.
Yeah.
So there's two perspectives you guys would know. Like there's people that whinge about things and complain about them, and there's the people that go, yeah, that sucks. And I guess I could probably try and do something about it rather than whinging about it. So I kind of created that little title. And
we're in the same boat, mate.
Yeah, I think we're well aligned there.
Definitely well aligned. That's one of the biggest reasons as to why we started with the podcast and other things that we're branching out into, is because same as yourself, we just saw a real need for there to be an easy, outgoing source that people can relate to, and that would be like an avenue in, instead of it being just a wall and a boys club and that.
Like a real world type situation.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
God forbid the real world and the real people.
Yeah. Like I don't know that it's accessible for people to do a podcast on reloading for an hour and a half, and talk about powder weights and stuff like that. I mean, people do, but to someone who might just be a little bit interested in hunting, I don't think that's meeting them where they're at, sort of thing. I think what's universal is people just having a conversation and having a laugh, being a dickhead, and then we get into a bit of hunting chat as well.
But then also wanting to, I think people wanting to, if they want to do something, being able to get into it. And that was kind of the big thing for me, was thinking that I couldn't get into it for some reason. I don't know why I thought it made. There's a whole bunch of history behind it, I guess, but thinking that hunting was unattainable for me and thinking I had to follow a whole bunch of rules that other people set for me.
Yeah.
And then finally getting to an age where I was like, you know what? Like, I don't need to follow any of those rules. I set the way that I want to get into it. Do I want to do it for this reason, that reason? Do I want to bow hunt? Do I want to, you know, hunt with a gun? Do I want to trap? Do I want to hunt at all? Like, I make all those decisions. That's me. And yeah, all these things are out there that influence how we make decisions. But at the end of the day, like, the buck stops with me. Like, I can decide on how I want to get into it and why I want to do it. And I wanted to do it for food, and adventure and experience. And I wanted to do it to learn something new, because I think learning new stuff is extremely important.
Yep.
And you get to a certain age in your life where you start to worry about your ability to learn new things. And I was going, am I getting to that point? No, I'll challenge it by just doing something completely out of the box. Like, I would have hit my friends with a complete, like, they would not have expected this to occur, I don't reckon. Boy lives in country, suddenly in country area of New South Wales, suddenly does hunting. I don't think that they kind of were expecting me to kind of turn up one day and be like, yeah, so I own a couple of guns now and I go out hunting for four-legged, you know, critters.
So did you not really have many friends that were into it or anything like that? You just decided one day to go, yeah, no, fuck it, I'll give that a crack.
Pretty much exactly that. I'd started to digest a bit of hunting media. Like, I started reading books and you know, a bit of, like, you know, we all know shows like Meat Eater and other stuff on YouTube, Aussie Bush Harvest, those kind of guys, and kind of went, oh, this is something that I could probably do and I want to do as well. But I did have, like, your standard mates, like, who own like farms, and we go, you know, back of the ute, like white knuckled, hanging onto the back of the ute in the middle of the night, frozen with both fear and the cold, trying to chase down foxes and bunnies and stuff. I did a bit of that, but I didn't understand the point of it. Like, they did, because they're, you know, they're from primary producer families. They knew why they did it.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is heaps of fun, and we're all smashing the beers and I love it. But it was just something that you did that time at, you know, Boxing Day when you're out having a bonfire with your mates. It wasn't something that I did as a genuine pursuit, you know? So yeah, just kind of one day, I guess, do you want the real story? I know we're asking questions, but the real story literally was...
Mate, this is the beauty of this podcast. We can do whatever the fuck we want.
Do whatever we want. That's what we're just talking about. Yeah. Same with hunting. Yeah, I was walking in, I moved to Scone, Upper Hunter area of New South Wales, and with my wife. We just got married, and I was just kind of, you know, got really bad hay fever, and I was a little bit pudgy, like a bit more overweight, and felt crap. And I was like, I'm just going to get up and go for a hike this morning. I'm just going to go to the nearest national park, park the car, and just walk. And I just started hiking, and I got in probably half an hour before I had to take a fucking break. But anyway, had a bit of water and that. Got up, went around the corner, and as soon as I turned the corner, there's this bloody fallow stag, fallow buck. Fuck, man, there's all this terminology. There's a fallow male deer with bony protrusions, and he's chewing on the side of this, this fire trail, and he just puts his head up and just kind of looks at me. And it was just at that moment I was like, I knew exactly what it was, but I'd never seen a deer before. I didn't even know that they were in Australia. And it was like the most profound experience in my life, because they're just standing there looking at this thing going, fuck, do I run away? Do I chase it? Do I get my phone out? Like, what do I do? And before I even could make a decision, the thing just kind of like looked at me and just barked, turned, jumped the fence, like leaped the fence meters away from it, just leaped over the fence and disappeared in like a smoke bomb in a second into the bush. And I was just like, that is the most awesome thing I've ever seen in my life. Like, how cool was that? Straight away on Google, didn't have much reception. I'm just looking at it, found out, 7 different deer species, like just started deep diving and went absolutely hammer and tongs into the whole thing, and just took it all in, podcasts and books and videos and as much as possible all at once. And then eventually just going out to look at deer, just going hiking, and bought some binoculars and started looking at them. And yeah.
When you told your friends that you saw this buck, were they just as astonished? Like, did they understand and know that there were deer in Australia, or were they sort of taken back?
I reckon the average person now in the last couple of years has been figuring it out because we've, been having them turn up like, skipping along through like Darlinghurst in Sydney and in between the railway lines at Central Station and Town Hall. Like, people are starting to figure it out, but most people didn't really know, or maybe they'd seen them and it just never really registered that they probably just thought they escaped from a farm and they weren't, and they were going to go back to the farm or they were about to be collected. Probably didn't think they were a wide population. But like, they're acclimatized, man. Like, they're going to be here forever.
Oh yeah, hopefully,
unless of some diabolical biological type control. But and look, I promise me that like they are. I promise you, they're looking into that stuff definitely, and that's scary.
Yeah,
culling's a big issue, man.
Like that.
Area culls and things, but baiting and all the rest of it.
Species specific baiting is the.
Yeah, that are like targeted baiting.
Serial baiting, that's a fear. Yeah, I've got to admit, like there's plenty of things that could go wrong with this whole thing, and it could go wrong on a primary producer level as well because of how closely related all these animals are, these ungulates, and I can just see like, it'll be terrible.
So I don't understand.
The same as like,
I don't understand taking away a commodity or a resource just for the sake of someone's put a label on it as vermin. I don't quite understand that way of thinking. I don't understand why they aren't getting subject matter experts into these positions that are making these decisions to stop this from happening. Because obviously, as hunters, we want this to be here for our kids and our kids' kids, and it is sustainable if we have some management.
I guess their perspective is they just get the primary producers who are a massive part of this whole economy in Australia saying, we've got a problem here, mate. Like, these things are coming on. They're taking up my valuable resource. Like, the sun grows the grass, which feeds my income, and they're eating it. And I think that's part of it. But then, and they say, so we had to step in because the numbers got too high. But we didn't get an opportunity ourselves really or weren't even asked and still aren't asked to actually come and help solve the problem. Like, we can solve the problem. Like, if a property owner says to me, like, I do want to just go and shoot a deer to eat, and I'll take as many as I can get a year and give away as much as possible, because it's now a hobby and a way of life, But we've never asked, like, hey, the numbers are really high. Can you guys shoot those now? Hey, the numbers are really high. We want you to really, they've changed it to feral status. We need these numbers knocked over. I feel like we just haven't really been engaged with as an actual resource. Straight away, everyone thinks like, okay, how much money do we need to spend to do this and achieve this outcome that's measurable? But you don't have to spend any money to.
We can make money.
We actually pay money. We actually we pay for licensing. Yeah, we actually contribute.
I think there's a big contributor to that is also the consultants that they have on board for that. So in most decisions that governments make, they would have some sort of consultancy.
The diplomats.
Yeah, diplomats.
Yeah. Well, not completely. I guess a diplomat, represents a certain party in others, and so they have someone representing a certain party.
Yeah, that's right. And so if these guys are, and this is just the theory that I have, I reckon the guys that are providing the information and intel on the best approach, coming from the perspective of being in the industry and knowing, they have a bit of a, I'd say, influence and push towards what they have more profit in, which would be the aerial culls.
A bias.
Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. So I think, I believe that a player in the whole choosing the wrong way to go about culling and controlling species is that the guys that are contributing to the decisions being made or influencing the decisions are also tied up in companies that run the culls and that benefit from the massive amounts of funding that go into it. But
I think there's a factor of it that we could still contribute to, though.
Oh shit, yeah.
I mean, like, if you're a government and you had to make a decision, you say, look, we've got 100,000 deer and we need it to be 20,000. Are you going to choose the contractor who you pay a certain amount for, who can say that they can get this many over this period of time for this much? Or are you going to go through and ask a bunch of ragtag blokes like us who you have no real control over, who have all sorts of varying types of guns and skills and abilities and time, And like I know that like all of us right now, we think, yeah, but I would
pay the
I would
government
do it
money
right.
to
I'd do this. I'm keen as, like, I'm ready to go, and we are. And I don't think they quite understand that we know so much more than they think we know, and we are so much better at this than they think we are, and we're so much more keen than I think they think we are. But we're just not really been asked to do it, or if we are, because of those couple of people that go and do stupid shit. Like
that's true. But also infrastructure.
Because of those, they go, we can't trust these guys because there's too many of them, and
risk mitigation. Yeah,
risk mitigation. But also, there's not enough infrastructure in place as well, so they'd have to roll that out, which means they'd have to design it, roll it out, fund it, and then there's time involved in that as well.
And police it and police it, have an authority over it. You need to have those rangers and all those people in place. But other countries have very good systems already structured that we could basically
just
automatically adopt straight away.
Exactly. Yeah. You don't have to reinvent the wheel on this.
Well, this is something that I was going to ask you actually. Obviously, being in New South Wales, you're allowed to hunt Crown land. You go get your license and
state forests. Yeah,
state forests.
Sorry, forestry run. Yep.
Is that something that you participate in?
Mm-hmm.
You do.
Best thing about it also gives you public liability insurance, which covers you for private land. So you buying that license, you sign up and you do a little training thing, and you do a little exam, and you sign up to a code of conduct and ethics that you'll stand by. You book the forest, you get your genuine reason from it as well to have a firearm in the first place because you're controlling ferals, and you get public liability insurance, which covers you and anybody who's with you if you get injured on public or private property, like $20 million public liability. So it just ticks every single bloody box for a hunter. And you can virtually do it anytime you want. You just need one full day in advance to book the forest, and provided that there are still allocations available, because different forests have different amounts of people per day that they can book, you can do it whenever you want.
You can piggyback, I believe, off of someone else's booking for that 24-hour notice as well.
You can also turn up the day before and in preparation to hunt. Obviously, you can't be walking around with your gun and hunting, but you could do all your scoping and everything the day before, camp the night before, and then start first light. So there's so many good reasons to do it. Like public land hunting in New South Wales is actually pretty great. Could be better. Like Victoria kind of leads the way in that.
Absolutely.
But that's like with the national parks, and that's the national parks are where the animals are harbored. That's where I first saw a deer. That's where I've gone without fail if I wanted to bring a mate up for a bit of a hike and we go and see some deer or pigs or goats, I'd go into the state forest, and within less than half an hour, we'd be onto groups of them, massive groups of them. They're not being managed at all. And they are all on fringe property that lead obviously to primary pasture areas of horse studs and cattle ranches and sheep farms and stuff, and they're not being controlled and managed at all. And you can't shoot them from a helicopter in deep bush. So we're the only ones who can actually solve that problem.
So that's a step in the right direction, essentially in part of this management that we were talking about before, is allowing people to do that. So from a south point of view, we look at East Australia and we're kind of almost jealous of Vic and New South Wales, the way they go about things. It's almost like you get at least your voice is heard, and they've put in place systems for you to be able to get out there and do it, which is one thing I was going to ask you. When you first decided that you were going to take up hunting, how did you go about getting into it over in New South Wales? Like, was it straight into R license or was it private property? What steps did you take?
Yeah, I wasn't long from, I went for my firearms license first. So, I registered to the local range, did my safety course, applied for my license. When I got that, then you have to, and you need a genuine reason. So you need to be obviously part of a shooting club or a hunting club or have a license for a state forest. You need those genuine reasons. And then from that, you have to, apply for the permit to acquire to get your first firearm, which I went for a 243. Lithgow too. My Greek mate, actually, there you go. He got me onto it. He just called his mate, and that Greeks have a mate for everything. And he's calls up his mate in Sydney down near Mascot or something, and goes on, new hunter. He wants this type of, I walked into the place. The guy pulled it. He hadn't even made it onto the shelf yet with the tag. It'd just been sold like that day to them, and they just go, "Yep, here you go, fully set up, scoped, ready to go, bipods, everything, just Lithgow, 243, just Australian gun, and I was like, fucking sold, bought that, and then once I had that, I got on with not my own genuine individual approval to go on a private property, but I went with another guy who had approval to go, and he took me along on my first kind of hunt, and I did shoot a deer that day, which was awesome. But then that I was relying on him to be able to go and do it. And of course, I'm new into it. I want to go every single waking moment, and he's going once every couple of months. So I then started to just basically anyone and everyone I talked to, I just brought up the topic of deer. Like I can bring up the topic of deer like within a few words. It's like a chess match now. Like I can kind of, I'm like the master of bringing up deer in a conversation.
Shoehorn it into the conversation.
How about that COVID? Oh yeah, did you see that fellow buck on your place the other week?
You know what I'd say with COVID? I'd say, did you hear that in America they're finding traces of COVID in white-tailed deer? I'll bring it up straight away. And I just turn the conversation. I do, and it works. Honestly, you just have those conversations. You explain yourself and why. And some people, you see them, some people get taken aback when you bring it up, and they instantly kind of just become, they put their guard up and they start getting really deflated and don't, they just seem, and I turn them around, because you just got to explain yourself. Like if I said to them, I just want to go and bloody lay animals over, I just want to get out there and just let off as many shots as possible and rip the paddocks up and just go, like, I don't say any of that. I say, look, I really like hunting. Venison's my main source of red meat. I genuinely, I do it this style, pack and rifle style. Like this is what I do. And I'd kind of explain it. If you want any, have you ever tried it before? And I just have those conversations, and most of them go, oh yeah, I go and shoot them every now and again. And I knock the back straps out and give a back leg to the dogs. But a lot of people don't do that. And they used to give me that kind of reverse response when they say that, I kind of recall and go, what, you only eat the back straps? Holy shit. The entire animal is bloody phenomenal. What about the heart and the liver? What about the ribs? But anyway, that's kind of how I kind of first went into it. But yeah, I pretty quickly went for state forests and started going up to like Nundle and Stewart's Brook and things that were close enough by. And I've had success there. Like I won't listen to anybody who tells you that state forests are all shot up and you can't successfully hunt deer. Yeah, during the middle of the rut, they're always booked out and everybody's up there, and it's also a great time of year to camp. But those fringe seasons, like in the middle of winter, in early spring, God forbid in the summer, if you're really desperate and you're very good at butchering very quickly and you've got ice ready to go. But yeah, I've gone spring hunting in state forests has been some of the best hunting I've done, because the animals really relaxed and there's a lot less pressure on them. And yeah,
you beauty, Rob. Your obsession with deer, your origin story of that, is actually reminding me of people who are obsessed with UFOs, like just
or Bigfoot,
a chance encounter, like in the middle of nowhere,
and no one saw it, but it actually happened.
And that's the first article I ever wrote was Beta Meinhof phenomenon, which is a German description for when you first see something that you've kind of never seen before, and then suddenly you start just seeing it all the time.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you have that feeling. Like my example I gave in the article, obviously deer was the example, but I also gave the example of Kim Kardashian. Never heard of her before in my life.
Yep.
Driving down a road in Sydney one day, and I saw this big billboard of Kim Kardashian, and I was like, oh, that's weird. I don't know who she is. And then I started hearing about her and seeing her all the time after that, because you build that association, and when you know something, it could even be a city that you've never heard of before, and you start hearing it all the time, or a word you've never heard, or like a person that you've never met, and you start seeing them all the time, because you suddenly have an association. Yeah. And that was me with deer. Like once I had seen that first deer, like everywhere I went, articles were coming up, and then people start sending you stuff as well, because they know that you're obsessed. And so you become a magnet for all deer paraphernalia, which is kind of where it ended up getting to. But yeah,
nice.
Yep, I'm crazed.
Beautiful. Well, you've answered question 10. The Lithgow was your first rifle, so we've knocked that one over. We've got question 8 and 9. My OCD is starting to kick in. I know there's some listeners at home that will be going, we haven't done all 10. So we'll roll over the last 2, then we'll get crazy. Yeah. What is your most treasured possession?
Oh, shit. That's a good one. I mean, you'd think I would have done some bloody planning or something for this. I don't know. I guess I do now. I really do treasure that rifle. Like, it's been such a great tool for me. And I don't really, I don't lord over guns too much. Like, I'm not kind of gun obsessed. I don't reload any of that stuff. They're just a tool for an outcome, which is deer on ground equals food, kind of, from my perspective.
Yep.
But yeah, I do. I would miss it if I didn't have it. I would feel a bit empty without it now, because it's just, it defines me now. Like, I'm a gun owner and a hunter, and proud of it, and will defend my stance on it.
Yep. Not
that I will go and, basically rally like people do, in America and stuff about gun ownership and stuff. Like, I'm not like that. I'm more of a guy who, I have it and I love that I have it and I use it for its purpose, which is, exactly what it's for. Like, it's a bit of target type stuff if you're really keen. And I do like seeing, multiple bullets going through a small circle. Like, I do, get off a little bit on that.
Yeah.
Particularly using these factory rounds on a gun like a Lithgow that's just such a flat shooting, beautiful. Like, you get so much confidence from every time you shoot it. You just know the bullet's going to go where you wanted it to go, which is a great thing about it. Even though it's a very small caliber and a small projectile, it's precision that you get out of the 243 Lithgow.
Yep.
It's not like, it's not landing power or anything like that. And it's not the kickback or anything. You don't get any of that. You just get this beautiful precision. But yeah, that's my answer. You know what? It's a hunting podcast, so I've got to keep it. I won't tell you I won't tell you the deep dark skeleton things that I treasure. Like the porn collection or something like that.
10-inch black dildo in your top drawer. It's all good.
You don't need any of that stuff anymore, do you? You've got the internet.
That's it. All right, last one. Recommend a movie to us, Rob.
Recommend a movie. Oh, what have I watched recently that you haven't watched? You probably watched everything that I've watched because we're all Aussies. I've had a couple, because I always write stuff down. When you listen to something, someone talks about this awesome movie and you kind of write it down and get around to watching it. I really enjoyed that little production that Meat Eater did, that Stars in the Sky. I did enjoy watching that, but I wouldn't call it. And if you haven't seen it, it's a good little kind of, someone who particularly is just getting into it for the first time and has their doubts about the validity of hunting in the world today, because a lot of people now say, like, why do you even need to do it? It's not necessary. Why don't you just go to the butcher, or why don't you not eat meat at all? Like, people don't get it. So it does go into that a bit more. It's more than just meat. It's more than just like anything that anyone tells you. It's more than just feral animal control. It's like, it's the ultimate package. It's like outdoors, mates, campfires, adventure, challenging yourself, exercise, mental stimulation. Like, yeah. So that's,
I think that can be your answer. I'm happy with that.
Sure. All right, we'll do that. Yeah. So I
haven't seen it, so yeah.
Yeah, get it. It's on Netflix now, I think. I originally paid for it when it first came out and watched it. And it's a short, sharp kind of production that he's put together, where he tries to talk to each perspective of hunting and hunters, using new people, old people, non-hunters, and tries to kind of just talk to all of that moral and ethics side of the whole thing.
Yeah, cool.
Which is good. I like being challenged like that and having to think about it. And like I said, at the end of the day, I'm going to make my own decision on how I do it. But that decision, I think it's my own, but it's actually influenced by all of this stuff. Mm-hmm. It all plays on it.
It filters down, yeah. Nice. All right. Well, we're free of the questions.
Oh, we can get. I don't think I've actually answered. I answer them directly and then talk about 4 other topics. So
no, that's all right.
That is how
I told you, mate. I'm a motor-mouthing son of a bitch. So
that's how we like it.
Talking about meat eaters, obviously he does a lot of cooking. So I had a question for you. What is the first way you prepared venison?
I think I went the typical backstrap loin, in kind of butter, salt and pepper and butter, just the pure kind of what does this thing actually taste like?
Yeah.
But in a pan on an electric stove, like nothing fancy, like cooked over coals or on some, gas fired, old beautiful oven or something, nothing fancy like that. Just, electric stove in a house in Scone, just kind of fried it up with a bit of oil and butter, medium rare. And just that, what it tastes like, and the first one I shot was a young yearling, like a very small little spiker. So it was phenomenal. And I didn't age it. I didn't do any of that stuff. I just literally butchered it and fried up that bit of it.
Is that the one you talk about in one of your articles? Just like butchering in the backyard, wondering what the neighbours are going to think?
That was exactly it. Yeah. So I was in a rental, in Scone, shot this deer. The guy helped me field dress it. And then he's like, yep, see you later, mate. Like shoved it whole in an esky, went home. Wife was away for the weekend, I think, and the dog was there and he was going ballistic, and then the neighbours' dogs are going ballistic. Dogs know. They know that something's going on. They're either super afraid of this thing or they want a piece of it. Yeah. And mine was a bit of both, and he was just absolutely rabbiting on about it. And that adds to that anxiety and stress because, no matter how many videos you watch and how much stuff you read about how to do these things, it's very visceral to do it for the first time by yourself.
Yeah, man.
And I do talk about, once you start getting into it, about the meditative state that you go into because you're so focused because you don't want to fuck it up.
Yeah.
So you're like, I just bloody spent like thousands of dollars to get into this whole thing, months of hiking around bush, wishing I had a gun in my hand because I see all these deer, all this time and effort, and then actual part of the hunt and making the shot, and the shot wasn't very good, and then kind of being really stressed about it and getting flustered and really kind of sweaty and stressed out about like, shit, I just killed something, like holy crap. Like, even though I've been killing stuff my entire life indirectly, that's the irony of this whole thing. So it's what you do. Like, so backyard butchering, it was, hung up over a mulberry tree. Yeah. It was.
So how was that first piece of meat? Like, now you explained all the stresses that are involved. Like when you sat down, you carved off that first piece of meat and you put it in your mouth. How did you feel? Because it's a feeling that I think is undervalued.
I enjoyed it so much that I now enjoy feeding it for the first time to other people and seeing their reaction. Because people are shocked. They they expect this kind of really gamey, and they just go, like, the flavor. I mean, trying to explain it to someone, obviously it's very meaty. I mean, that makes sense. Umami, like, it's got the meat flavoring, but it's got like a rich, earthy kind of flavor. Like, if you can explain it that way, you kind of think you're eating beef, but then you kind of think you're eating lamb, but it's not fatty like lamb. It's great. Yeah, I love it. And now it's just, the versatility of the meat is amazing. Like, yes, aside from not having any fat on it, really, you can do everything you can do with any other type of red meat with it. And it's not hard to go and Google and get a recipe, but any kind of, if you want to do a lamb dish, like a lamb mince dish, mince it with a bit of lamb fat from the butcher. They give it away. Buy some pork belly and mince it with pork belly, and you can make pork related stuff. You can get beef tallow as well and cross it with it. You can just do it, mince it straight and mince it with breadcrumbs, and you can get, and I'm talking about a lot of mince, but you can also eat it straight. You can do stir fries, you can do curries, you can do chili with it. You can, anything. And that's how popular. We do tortillas where I just cook it, slice it up, beans and guacamole and a bit of fried corn or something. It's a favorite. I cut it into little fingers for my daughter. She grabs onto it and gets all the nutrients out of the meat, because obviously she doesn't have the teeth yet to masticate it. But you give them, a cut of venison, and she loves it. Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
I like it. That's really good.
Outstanding.
Beautiful. All right. Well, what should we do? Should we go right back to where it all started? I mean, we know now that you didn't start hunting till your late 20s, but I want to know, being in the outdoors, you've said you like a bit of hiking and whatnot. Like, and I've read in one of your articles, you started off in the Scouts. Was that your sort of entry point into that, being in the outdoors? Did you enjoy it? Did you enjoy it back then? Or?
Before Scouts, I was, Western New South Wales, Western Sydney, sorry, and people who've lived around that area know that we have like fringe country. So we had a lot of those freedoms of living in those suburbs of Western Sydney where you could go out to the bush. God knows who owned that bush. It was a Crown land or private land or whatever. But we'd go out push bike riding, building jumps, building forts and cubbies and bases and, collecting tadpoles and growing them into frogs and putting them back out again, collecting geckos, shoving them on your shirt, riding your bike halfway across town, the gecko would be there, and then putting it somewhere else and then seeing if you can find it again a few weeks later. So it was always there. I was one of those little biker gang kids going into construction sites and smashing glass just to see what would happen and getting chased off by the neighbors and just all that kind of stuff that you kind of need to do, don't you? Like, I feel like without it, I don't know what I would be like now, because even despite all of that, I still got overweight, and still became sedentary like most people do in their young adult years. So even with all of that awesome stuff that I love doing, I still became that way. So it's kind of that's reinventing that again. That's what kind of reigniting that in me is.
Yeah, I was going to say, did you feel a bit restless? So in those years where you're sedentary, did you feel like there was something missing? Like you had to get out and get active, or? But
it was pretty awesome. I was living like in Sydney studying, and I had no money. Like I went bankrupt that many times. Enough to buy milk and bread, and of course you always had enough money to buy like a jug of beer and a $5 steak at the local pub. But I think so. But I guess life is the ultimate distractor from the things that you probably want to do and love. And I didn't realize that I loved doing it until I was sort of in this, smaller town, and I didn't have all of those other distractions. I didn't have all my mates around, and I had my wife, but we, like anybody in a good relationship, they have different interests. We don't do the same stuff all the time. So I think that's probably the biggest part about it is you've got to put yourself in the environment that aligns with what you want in your life and what you like in your life. And me not being in the city and being more rurally based. And I know I'm on the coast now, but I'm in a kind of remote, kind of semi-remote kind of town that's still classified as rural. And that allows you then these opportunities to do these unique things in a place like Australia, where there's so many things you can do that are unique if you step outside of the big city lights. Which is kind of what I did. Yeah.
How'd your wife take it down the track when you got into hunting? How did she sort of react to it?
She was pretty good. Like, she's actually from Canada. So I guess, and they're not obviously as acclimatized to it as what America is, but Canadians understand the annual moose hunt, and they understand whitetail hunting, and they understand waterfowl hunting. And her grandfather used to waterfowl hunt, made his own, duck calling, waterfowl hunting and stuff. So I think to her it was just like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like, and she ate it, she got into it. Like, I had a bit of, it's more, I reckon the bit that kind of, because she's actually a GP, so the bit that was most contentious was the field dressing, the butchering, and the cooking, because those are the steps that you can really do a bad job of if you don't prescribe to certain rules. And so that was the bit, like, if I'm going to eat it, like, you need to look up this stuff, you need to learn about it, and you need to practice, and you need to do it right. Because, and I'm glad I did, because now we're feeding it to our daughter. And if anyone knows, if she could eat a blueberry from a frozen packet from China and die from listeria. So the risks are always there, but I don't want it to be me that puts that risk forward. I'd rather it be the multi-million-dollar corporation who then has to recall the entire stock.
At least you've done your due diligence.
It's odd. We had I don't know if you heard, we had a thing in South Australia where someone was putting pins in strawberries for a while.
Everyone heard about it.
You heard it? Yeah.
Because then you had copycatters. That was a national thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it was terrible.
And the amount of people really went absolutely bonkers about it, didn't they?
Yeah.
And the only strawberries I eat whole, the only strawberries that I'll just grab and just eat the strawberry are ones that I pick out of the garden. because that's what you do with strawberries from the garden. They never make it to the kitchen. You just eat them. But the ones that come in the stores are so big that you chop the heads off them and you chop them in half and put them in cereal or something. So it was never a problem for me. But it's kind of like, I don't know, it's a hard one, isn't it? Because I respect that someone did that and just to see what would happen.
Hell yeah.
And it happened. And the media played it up as if like it was the worst thing that could ever happen and they were risking people's lives. But they loved it as well because it was news stories.
Oh, yeah. They made out like it was a terrorist attack. Like, it's ridiculous.
Oh, definitely.
Man, yeah.
You started chopping your strawberries after that.
Yeah,
mate.
but at the same time, we're being sold we're basically being sold like sugar and junk,
That's
and
right.
we don't get a choice.
Yeah.
And none of that's complained about or talked
Diabetes is
about.
on the rise.
I prescribe to it as well. Like like everybody, you get addictions to things, and I don't mind, a Freddo frog every now and again, and that kind of stuff. And it's kind of like a guy putting a needle in a strawberry. It's just someone who's like me as a kid going around and door knocking and running away. Like they're just kind of testing the limits.
I love that.
Maybe a bit of ADHD and
Caleb
just
and
ignore
I
'em.
with those
They
two
stop.
boys.
Oh, for sure.
Definitely.
We did,
The old ding dong dash.
Yeah.
amongst other things.
The problem is it does escalate though. We used to do a few, like you do the garden gnome, steal a garden gnome from one place, put it in someone else's garden just to try and see what. And like imagine waking up one day and going out to your garden, there's a gnome in your garden. Like we used to think that was fucking hilarious, and most people would probably just get it and throw it in the bin and not care. So,
I
Neck minute breaking and entering.
yeah, all that.
Guy comes home, there's a garden on his bedside table.
I house sat around the corner from Ryan's house once when I was dating his sister many years ago, and for some reason I thought it was funny to take there was a sort of like a house in between the two houses, like his house and the one I was house sitting. It was hard rubbish. So these people had put like washing machines and all sorts of shit out the front. And I thought for some reason as a teenager it'd be funny to put a washing machine on his front doorstep.
And my mum was pissed.
Just at random. I just thought, why not?
It's a gift.
The inconvenience of it
Fucking
all.
gift.
That's what I
Mum
mean,
was
but like you
fucking pissed.
can't educate that out. You can't do anything. Like that's just it is what it is.
Man, boys will be boys.
You up and you move it again. Exactly.
I thought it was hilarious.
And I think we get caught up on that stuff a bit too much, and it's not a problem. It doesn't change your life. It doesn't impact you at all.
You got
Anyway.
to see the funny
Does he
side.
always bring that story up though? Does he always bring up?
I'd totally forgotten about it.
Yeah, he's
sister.
forgotten about it. And
I'd totally forgotten about
I'm now
it.
divorced from his sister,
Yeah.
so she's
Yeah.
probably not thinking about it either. But no, I think I had to put it back as well. Your mum made me put it back.
No,
But
there's
the hard rubbish had been collected, so your poor neighbour.
Oh no,
Just-
that is a problem.
the,
yeah,
the
right. So
washing
then
machine
suddenly it's
came
their
back
rubbish.
it just came back from
Yeah.
the dead.
Because the rubbish has been taken, the council are done for 2 months, and
Yeah.
you've got
Yeah.
this bloody washing machine on your front lawn. That would get me.
How did she know that you did it?
Well, I owned up to it because they're like, well, it must be Caleb.
You fucking sook. Rushing up to it.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not me. You got a camera? Nah.
I look back at it now, I'm like, all that effort, and it wasn't actually that funny. But
I thought it was fucking hilarious.
anyway.
Although I didn't know
Yeah,
it was
I
you
mean,
until you owned up on it.
Oh, well, we all do stupid shit when we're young.
Yeah.
Hey, so speaking of cutting up strawberries and fruit and veg, you a bit of a gardener as well, Rob?
Yeah, I love it. Same thing. Mum's always done it, and I think you've got a lot of gardeners have an influence. I think they don't just do it like for the sake of it. And she used to do it and grow a few little things, and it never really made, like as a kid you're just like, why are you doing that? Because sometimes we wouldn't even eat it. Like we'd have all this stuff and it would just keep growing, and she'd work on it and grow it and never get around to using it. So I kind of got into it. There's nothing kind of more smug than growing your own stuff and eating it, because it does taste pretty good.
One of the
and you can say, well, I grew that,
one of the best feelings I think there is for someone like yourself and us is to put out a plate for people, and you've grown everything that's on it, and you've shot and butchered the meat that's on the plate as well, and you've provided that yourself from the ground and from the wild. I think there's something just absolutely satisfying about that.
Oh, it is definitely, and it has a story, which is great.
Oh shit, yeah.
And And also, you get to use it finally after all the bloody effort you put into growing it and stuff. It didn't just end up in the compost.
So what do you grow? What do you have in your garden at the moment?
Well, just because we just moved here in April, I did get a couple of little winter things in early, like some snow peas and sugar snaps and stuff. But at the moment, it's now spring started, so it's getting the seedlings of tomatoes, cucumbers, carrots, getting that stuff started, some chilies, and we've got a massive strawberry patch that was already here. So I'm just bringing it back to life because it started to really dwindle off. But we're talking 10, 15 meter long strawberry patch. So and it's starting to flower heavy. So I'm expecting to be gorging on them. I might even put a couple of needles in there just for fun.
I think
The
thing that shits me most about strawberries, or certainly buying them from the shops, is you pick up the punnet and already they're starting to go mushy. And then you take them home, you get, 2 days out of them and they just turn to fucking mush. And
That's most fruit, man.
What the hell?
And veg.
So I've now started to push it even to the point where like I'm doing these little mini challenges. I read a book by a guy, Bo Miles, if you've heard of him. And if you'd agree to come on, he's definitely not a hunter, but he's he calls himself, he's the backyard adventurer. And he's the kind of guy who's done all the big overseas adventures, kayaking hundreds of Ks around the Cape of Africa or something, and all this crazy stuff. And then COVID happened and he's like, suddenly has to do all this stuff at home. So he's doing these like 1 mile an hour for 24 hours to do like a half marathon around his block, where at the end of every hour, like he'll do the run and take him whatever, I don't know, 10 minutes, 5 minutes to do a mile. And then he has a list of jobs, 100 long, and he'll just start ticking those jobs off over that 24 hours and get through all these jobs and just like, so anyway, I read that book and I was like, what kind of stuff can I do that challenges me as well? And I had this 7 kilo pumpkin sitting in my pantry that my brother-in-law had grown. And I was like, fuck, how long could I live, last on just eating that pumpkin and pumpkin alone? And I went, what if I go 1 kilo a day for 7 days? And I fucking did it. It was like 7 kilos of pumpkin. And I did have tea, and I did have tea and coffee still. But I did like black tea and coffee and that. And yes, basically boiled some of it and made soup. I roasted all the seeds as like snacks, and then I just roasted the rest of the pumpkin. And it was amazing actually at how I didn't really feel hungry. There were a few points where I felt fatigued, but never felt hungry. I definitely had way less calories than what I'd normally consume, because pumpkin worked out. It was like I was only getting maybe 10 or 20% of my normal daily intake of calories, and that was mostly light on carbohydrates, mostly just fiber, tiny bit of protein, and some good kind of vitamins, and that was about it. But it was fine. 7 days on a pumpkin, fine.
How much weight did you lose?
I was just like, it started at like 98 or 98 and a half, and by the end of it, I was like 95 or 96. I think it was about 2.5 kilos in 7 days. Of course, I put probably half of it or 3/4 of it back on afterwards, because you go into like starvation mode, I guess, and you kind of start getting that ketosis type. Although I didn't quite as much, because I was still getting carbohydrates, and ketosis is normally protein, fat only, and carb none.
Yeah.
So I didn't get that as much, but I was noticing certain things that were a bit different. But yeah, no, and I still did. I was gardening, I was fucking building fences, I was going out for runs, everything normal. Tried to live normal while I did it, and yeah, it was awesome. It was a good little challenge. So the next one I'm thinking, and we're talking about it, no one really anymore can be self-sufficient. Like, we're not really set up for that anymore, and we rely on so much stuff. But I feel like we can be region sufficient, and there's resilience in living in your region. So now I'm in a part of a region where I've got like the ocean, the rivers, the mountains, and a lot of market gardeners. So I'm thinking like the next challenge is like, how long, can I go like a month where I only source my food and stuff, like either myself, grow some of it, hunt it, fish it, or buy it from these local, like we've got dairies nearby. So I've got cheese, yogurt, milk. Like, there's no reason really for me to have to buy any other stuff except the staples. So the things that I would miss would be flour, any medications that I have to take, like that stuff that I just have no choice but to rely on, on the people that supply it. So that's probably what I'm thinking about next. I'm kind of working myself up to it, because I know it's going to be a massive challenge. But yeah, I reckon that'd be a cool one. to give a go at. Yeah. But that's it. That's actually, you know what? It's probably like we talked about the big advice earlier, one of the questions. Maybe this backyard adventuring, he's onto something here.
Yeah.
Just like challenge yourself and just make up your own little funny fucking games and just go for it. Because there's no rules. I made the rules myself. I just went on Instagram one day and said, oh, hey, who reckons I could live 7 days on this pumpkin? And most people wrote back, nah, probably not. So I was like, well, fuck you guys. I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
And now I know I can do it, and I know how much like I could lose in that amount of time. And if I know how much food I really actually need. So it's kind of, it's pretty cool little challenge to test yourself. Yeah.
Well, going back to the whole veggie garden thing and sort of growing your own, because I didn't start getting into that until I actually started hunting, because I wanted to have the other side of that as well, like the plant-based stuff. Mm-hmm. So for people that are looking at that as well and want to branch out into that, what would you recommend that they start out with, as far as if they've got a small little bit of grass or land that they want to turn into a great veggie patch? What would you recommend they start off with as something that's easy that they can maybe dip their toe a little bit to see how it goes?
I started in a rental, like both hunting and gardening. So you can do it. It probably depends on the type of rental. So a lot of people will just build up a little planter box so that they can take it away when they're done. So, get used, 4 walls of a planter box, fill it with drainage, a bit of mulch and some soil, and just grow like greens and stuff. But tomatoes are good this time of year. You can get the tomato seedling and they'll grow pretty well. Like cherry tomato, because big tomatoes are hard because then you got to manage fruit flies and they can get other kinds of diseases and stuff, and they're just a bit harder to manage. But cherry tomatoes, you can get a massive haul off. So I went down to the Woolies down the road and grabbed a bunch of old pallets and ripped them apart and built planter boxes out of pallets using the nails that are pulled out of the pallets and the actual pallets themselves. Built that up. Went and I did buy just bought soil mix, whatever they are, $20 a bag or whatever. Filled up the pallets, planted some tomatoes, cucumbers, and like herbs are good. Even just herbs, just a couple of herbs like rosemary, perennial basil, thyme, and oregano. Like those ones grow really well in Australia in most places. And then it's just one little thing. You don't have to pay $3 for this tiny little plastic kind of canister from Woolies. You've got it there. You just go and chop a bit off and throw it in. Herbs. Tomatoes I like. Zucchinis are great. If you've got zucchinis are better just in the ground though. So you can dig up a couple of like what looks like little grave sites. So you kind of you put some newspaper or cardboard over the grass, let it die off in winter, and then just come and plow it up. Like cut a square out, maybe put some edging on it or something just to keep the grass out, and just basically toil it over a few times. Add something to it, compost or whatever. What I used to do, because I was building this stuff from scratch in a rental, is collecting your compost and that, but then you dig a trench, like a grave site, dig a trench, throw the soil to the side, lay your compost out as it is. Doesn't even need to be broken down, banana peels, bits of tomato, whatever you got, coffee grounds, throw it all down and then backfill the soil over the top of it. And you'll find the soil tends to just have enough to start the seedlings off. And then they kind of go down. And then at the same time, the worms and the microorganisms are coming and starting to break down the compost and do their thing and aerate the soil. And you're watering it more as well. So it's getting better water. And this whole soil life just comes to life. Like a dead bit of ground just turns into something. And suddenly the plants find that and go bang. And they'll just start, like you see it, like you'll see the seedling that looks like it's dwindling. And then a month, 2 months in, it just goes bang and explodes into life and starts producing flowers and fruit. So there's a couple of little tips of someone who only did this 3 or 4 years ago myself. Like I just started. There's nothing fancy to it. There's no backyard blitz or anything. You just start, throwing soil around and just chuck stuff in the ground. Snow peas and stuff in winter are great because you don't even need to add anything. I didn't. I just dropped them in the ground 10, 15 centimeters deep, covered it back over, gave a bit of water, and then just don't water it after that, because they'll go soggy and die and that. So you just let them go, and the peas will just come up and start growing up the fence, and in volume, massive volume.
Bang.
Yeah.
Big
so there's
gardening
a couple
tips
of
for
ones.
free. Love it.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Now, Rob, you've been kind enough to send us some articles you've written in Australian Deer magazine. I'm pretty interested to know how all that came about. How did you start writing these articles, and what was that progression?
I started like with the bush poetry stuff when I moved to Scone. I went to this Yarns Night, they call it. They do like the horse festival. So Scone's a big horsey town. Like most of the race horses, in Australia, the good ones get bred in Scone and trained in Scone. Oh, yeah. And they do this horse festival, and they have these different events on where you get damper and Yarns Nights where people come up and tell jokes or do bush poetry. And the guys that came up, and girls as well, they were coming up and doing some of the old Banjo Patterson kind of Dorothy McKellar stuff. Then every now and again, they were throwing in these originals that were fucking hilarious, like extremely captivating about like getting a colonoscopy, or like these old guys coming up just doing these like awesome tales. This one guy told this bush poetry tale about how they had some sort of thing going on in Sydney, and I think it was like a strike with the wharfies, and you couldn't get the ferry. And a lot of people used to get the ferry back in the day instead of obviously driving or catching a bus or train. And so he's like, well, stuff this. And he jumped in his canoe with his mate, fully dressed in his suit because he was a lawyer, and paddled across the harbour, and then got up the other end and carried the canoe up, and people got over in the street and clapped him and cheered him, like saying, you stuck it to these bloody unionists and stuff. And they tell these stories, and I was like, these are the best things ever. So I basically sat down. It might have been a week later. I think I was talking, my wife and I have an argument about who steals the sheets at night, or who takes up most of the bed. And I think I sort of said, you do. And she's like, no, you do. And she said, well, why don't you write a fucking poem about it then? and I did.
Boom. Yeah, I'll do it then.
Yeah, straight away. Yeah, I did it. And that's what happens. You get inspiration, and I just hit it. And so I wrote a few of those. People kind of liked them. So then I was like, what if I just write some articles? Because I was reading some of the ADA stuff, and I liked some articles were really unique, and some were a bit like the same as always. Like, went out, had a great time with the mates camping, and then I shot this gun, and then I filled my freezer up, and it was starting to get. I read a couple of the magazines, and I was like, this is just getting a bit repetitive.
Yeah,
and a lot of them are just like, in my head going like, whinge about it or write your own fucking articles.
Yeah,
man.
Good.
So I did.
Perfect attitude.
And so I wrote about, I wrote Beta Meinhof phenomenon about getting into hunting, and that massive download of information about deer from not knowing anything at all. That's the first one I put out. Yeah.
Oh, okay. There you go. How many are you up to now?
Oh, actually, yeah. How many? God, I'm like the best free rider they've ever had. I'd be 6 or 7, maybe 8. Yeah. I just submitted another one the other day. So got a couple of. I've changed them a bit. I'm trying to make them more comedic. If you've noted, like,
I noticed that.
Fly fishing. The fly fishing one was really fun, and about learning how to fly fish, and how my wife was way better than me immediately, and stuff like that, and kind of the ironies of sort of fly fishing and stuff. And then I just wrote one that just came out about gas. Another condition that I invented, which is gear acquisition syndrome. And how I've got really bad gas, and it's creating problems like distension of my debt, and just kind of trying to. It's like a play on words, I guess. Yeah, like gas is gear acquisition syndrome. It's also a thing that people get when they have bowel disorders and stuff. So I was kind of playing on words, like instead of celiac disease, you had see you like disease. So you see something that you like and you fucking buy it. Clever. I wrapped it all up pretty well though, because I talk about how I really suffer from it. But now I've kind of discovered the secret that I'm not going to tell anybody, but it's basically rely on everybody else going out and buying heaps of stuff, and then buying it on Gumtree after they sell it and getting it secondhand. Yeah. But I wouldn't worry too much. Like, you, mate, go and buy as much stuff as you want. And if you end up being a bum because you've spent all your money, you've got the best tent, you got your, your O3 ozone water boiler and stuff. You got your dog and gun coffee pouches. You've got great camo gear that's really good under fleeces. You've got all this awesome gear that you can live under a bridge and forage and hunt your own food. You'd be fine.
It's true.
Some people get pleasure in passing on the hand-me-down so other people can enjoy it.
And then there's the people that thoroughly enjoy receiving the hand-me-downs.
It's like a progression. Actually, there is a fair bit of stuff that goes from Josh to me to Ryan.
Yeah. It's like,
At least you all know where you stand in the pecking order, eh?
I chose to be the last one though.
Yeah,
because,
exactly. Yeah.
Jokes on these guys because I get everything for a quarter of the price.
Sloppy thirds.
Yeah.
quarter of the price. You mean
as well,
free?
and-
Well, that's true. Well, what's 4 times free?
In saying that as well, I reckon, you're into a podcast now and you start to interview more and more guests, and hopefully you start getting ones on that actually own gear companies, and you're starting to get it free. Hashtag the Venison Diplomat likes free gear too.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, can we have 5 of
I think
these?
something's
What
on the
for?
way. I
Something
think
forward,
the ADA is sending me something at some stage, I think. So that's nice. But I'm doing it for the love. Like, it's been a lot of fun doing it. And, it's different. Like, talking to people is so different to trying to actually craft something into words. It's like fucking hard, man. It's really hard to write stuff down because you can think it driving down the highway and have to pull over and write a few notes, and you've got it perfect in your head. And if you don't get it down there, and then you go back to write it later, you can never get it the way that you had it before. And it's a curse
100%.
to have this what I have, which is just thinking about stuff all the time.
Yeah,
and
man. It's that creativity, isn't it?
It's great when it's awakened in somebody.
Yeah,
'cause
shit,
you
yeah.
can
I get that a lot.
test things
'cause
up. Yeah.
Caleb and I were both musicians, and I think a lot about music. And I swear, I'd have moments where there is a hit song that comes and goes within the space of 10 minutes. And if you don't capture that, you're fucked. I'm not even joking here. I'm a fucking rock star. I'm a genius, a musical genius.
Settle down, trendsetter. Fucking hell.
I'll have you know that I am a musical genius as well as an intellectual genius.
Fuck off.
Wait, I'll give him kudos because he wrote our riff for the start of the podcast. It was
I'm
good.
not,
It's
don't
good.
mean to
It's
sound
a
like I'm
good one
taking
as
the
well,
piss,
like,
but I can relate to what you're talking about where you have these things that come and go. And I've actually used to carry a notepad around all the time, and then I got in a little bit of trouble for not doing anything and writing down the things that I think about. So I've decided to start that again, hence the notepad that I've got today.
It's like one of those old guys in like his top breast pocket, just like a little notepad and pen, and just pull it out and just be writing.
Yeah.
with the ink.
Oh, yeah.
Where it's leaked out.
The pocket protector.
Yeah, the property.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, I
actually had
use
that.
I use the notes on iPhone basically, and I will pull over on the side of a highway or wake up at 2 a.m. with one of these thoughts. Sometimes it's actually even just I suddenly start one of the poems in my head, and then I go, oh, I wonder if I can remember it all, and then I start reciting it, and I get stuck, and then I go, what is it? And then it's a thing, it's a problem, but it's good fun, and it's the same as anything like with music as well. You're either really good at it and you become a professional and it is your career, or you do it for yourself.
Yeah.
So I play guitar and sing along, and you probably like on my Instagram, I do
I've
it
watched a
sometimes.
bit.
I don't know why. I get on the beers and I just kind of, I just want to get on. I'll just get on and play because I know I'm not great, and that's the fun of it. Like I do it; it's an outlet, and I do it for me. And sometimes you get in one of those tunes, and you reckon you're like I'm gonna give this one an absolute hard crack and. Get a Mumford and Sons going and realize like you know nowhere near as good as his.
You like wake up the following day and play it back to yourself and go, fuck that shit.
And then the neighbours.
Someone's strangling
you're really
a cat.
good at
Yours
guitar,
like
and they got a smile on their face, and you go,
Yeah, thanks, mate. Thanks. It's actually really good with the article side of things that you're adding the comedy element in. Because a lot of those do get a bit dry, and like you said, it's like, and then we did this, and then we did that, and I think to chuck a bit of humour in there definitely lightens things up and makes it again a bit more accessible to people.
It's like what we were talking about
think-
before the podcast started. Before we started recording today, it's it's comedy and humour is almost lost in Hunters at the moment, when it's not about that at all. Yeah, you should be able to have like crack a funny and
Well, it's like you said, Rob, when we were chatting before. Like, it's just normal people doing
being normal
stuff.
Yeah.
Like that's
that's the best thing about it. It's the average Joe's like hobby. That's what I like about it. I think, and to challenge yourself with it, like I talked a bit on a different podcast about like pig hunting and how I've never done it, and like the proper pig hunting, and I've never really understood it either. But to challenge my own perceptions of it, because like And these guys and girls are like, they're committing so much time and effort into breeding the dogs, training the dogs, buying all the gear for them and the GPSs and the jackets and stuff. Then the cars, they've all got the exact same bloody car, like the jacked up Toyota with the big dog cage on the back and the flatbed.
Yeah.
And like, that's massive commitment. And they're doing all of that because they love doing it. It's their hobby. But they're providing an awesome service, because I don't know if you've been into Western New South Wales, and you probably have the similar areas of SA as well. But man, like, you can drive at first light or last light and pass hundreds of pigs.
Yeah.
Sows running with dozen piglets running behind them, eating carrion off the side of the road, like dead pigs or dead brews. And like, they're all carrying brucellosis. The ability to spread it across to livestock is huge. And I go like, man, like, how could you not respect that? They're like the Superman of hunting. Like, they don't eat it. Some do, actually. Some do. But yeah, it's massive commitment of time and effort.
The thing that astounds me is that how many dogs one person has and has time to train all the dogs.
I've got a mate who does it, and he explained it to me like this: the same as you have a different gun, as you got to have a dog that does something different. So you got the runners, you got the slow boys that catch up, and like the runners and the holders, and then
the chase.
You got different dogs with different tools. And I'm like, all right, what's that one? Oh, what's that one? And he goes, oh, that one's named Spanner.
Well, one will just be wicked at all of it, and he'll be his favourite dog. And then, the lifespan of the dog, like working wise, is not as long as a normal dog's life. So they're like, oh, that dog's no good. They move on to the next one, in that life. It's crazy. I agree. The amount of effort and just dedication required to be.
And I don't think they care. Like, it's a perception thing. And I think they're just like silently, they know why they do it, and they just like doing it, and they don't care to have to prove it to anybody. I think that's probably part of it. And then there's also the bad eggs part of it, which unfortunately exists in every single thing we do. You got a few bad eggs or even bad dogs, unfortunately, that have killed people. And that's like, you can't, like, that's just the worst situation that could ever happen for so many reasons. But like, partly because once it happens, it can't unhappen. And you can't say then that it's completely safe and that these dogs are, you know what I mean? Like, that's the problem. You can't ever go back on that. And that's the really frustrating thing for it. But I don't know. It's a utility thing. It's the same as guns. Like, we don't own them because one day that could actually shoot somebody. You own them because you have a utility for them. And the risk, I know, even though it's so remotely low, I know, sorry, you've been in the army and that.
No. I was just thinking, like, one of our episodes was Doomsday Preppers, and you're like,
oh yeah. And they do, that's their,
that's their reasoning.
I think there's a different way to doomsday prep, and it's like I said, resilience of community and finding that within your own community. And if you have it, you feel so comfortable, man. You feel like, during all of COVID, we felt really comfortable, and it's not because we're self-sufficient and all this other stuff. We just knew that, like, like Joe down the road, he's really good at this, and we go out hunting together, and he's better than me, so I know I'll get a deer. And he's also really good at pickling stuff, so he'll sort that out. And his parents have chickens, and then his grandma, grows mad zucchinis, and like, you just create this community, and then you're getting all these things for free. Like, we're just trading. We're trading. I give them venison, they give me this. Like, I give them a pumpkin, they give me that, and we get this massive kind of thing going on. I
think that stuff just feels right. Like, that's how people should live and exist, and like you said, have that sense of community. I think people miss out on that a lot these days.
I think humans crave that, don't we? We to belong to a community and have that sense of community surrounding. That's why people.
I think a lot of people feel like they're missing out on something. They just don't know what that is. Like, they can't put their finger on it, so they try all these different things or whatever. But I think that does have a really fulfilling element in your life is that sense of community and belonging and having an expertise on something. Like, you're the venison guy, you're the pickling guy, like you said. Like
says the man that flips you off at the fucking traffic lights.
Oh, so
you're right.
All right, we better elaborate now. So I was driving along, minding my own business today, and then Josh is at the intersection, and I happened to be driving past. I recognise him, and he recognised me at the same time, and he turns his high beams on and
I flashed you.
You blinded me.
I flashed you.
Blinded me with your bloody light bar, mate.
Oh, it's during the mid.
Could have crashed.
Mid fucking sun, mate.
For
You
the
probably
second
didn't see it.
time.
Yeah.
Anyway, you did mention it briefly there, Rob. How's your fly fishing going?
Not great, but we're about to open back into the season now for the area, and I'm positioned well for it because I'm now down the south coast, and you don't have to go far at all to go for trout and things. What I really want to get into is doing it to a point where like I got saltwater and freshwater and even like carp related. So yeah, I'm about to kind of put a bit more time into it, and it seems like something I can do with a younger baby because you can kind of wear
Chuck
them
in
on
a
a
harness sort of thing,
on your chest or back, and just the whipping. You got to be confident. You know what I mean? Because it is a hook flying past your face.
True.
Imagine I've hooked the dog once. And I've hooked a dog though with a one of those like triple hook lures, like a cicada lure or something in fresh water, like going for bass, and he jumped in after it and grabbed onto it, straight through the lip and bottom lip and top lip, so he couldn't even. Oh, that's the worst. That's pain to see a dog do that and not be able to do anything about it because he's there. You reel in, it's getting closer to him, so there's nothing I could do.
Hence the
He's
vet
going for
bills.
that lure, and he wanted it.
Crikey.
So I actually think about it. I think about the technique because that's kind of part of it. It's a rhythm thing as well. It's about not like there's no force to it. It's very much like you just got to practice. And then there's the right fly selection and being in the right spot and knowing like there's all these other things, but I feel like sometimes it's just the actual process of getting the fly to land on the water or put it where you want it to go is kind of pretty important.
So it's a skill thing that's attractive to you because I've never tried it. So I'm like, well, all I see is these guys standing there flicking around the place. I'm like, surely you just get lots of knots.
And there is a lot of that stuff, particularly earlier on. And I'm in that phase now. There's a lot of knots, but I think what it is about it that I kind of talk to in the article a little bit. It's different, and even though it's getting really popular, it's kind of unique. So it's like something that not a lot of people can do, and it's kind of I'm attracted to that stuff, like doing something a bit outside the square, a bit outside the box. Yeah. So we'll see. I say all of that, but I still haven't even caught a fish on a fly. So there you go. Like that's part of it as well. Like people want the challenge of getting something on an artificial rather than just attracting it through burleys and baits and known, tried, true techniques. And the good fly fishermen will say, well, I can catch them all the time because I do it right and I use the right flies. And pretty awesome.
Have you got someone showing you what to do, or are you just researching it yourself?
I prescribe to Anchored Outdoors. It's really good. So if you've heard April Vokey, she runs a private online website that does master classes, and kind of when you're part of it, you get involved in their internal social media stuff. And I kind of watch a few of those and learn a bit from that. But otherwise, I reckon like getting a guide is a great way to do it. We had heaps of fun on that guided trip in Blue Mountains. We did a guided trip and we didn't catch a fish that day. But God, we saw heaps of fish, and it was just different. It was just unique and different. You could see the people that were there. They all knew how special it was. There was like, 10, 15 other people out there fishing, and some of them getting fish, some not. And man, but they're very touchy though. Like they're super specific. Like there's some guys lure fishing and pulling, one of them hooked it. They obviously didn't actually catch the fish, but when they were reeling in really rapidly,
just foul hooked
the
it.
Fish by the side, but still got a bloody selfie with it, and every single head turn, and it was like they protect that, like they protect their way of life, like you wouldn't believe. They protect the water. Because the water access they have for some of this stuff is actually like power plant lakes that they use to cool the towers down. So that is purely a negotiation between private people and the power station to allow the public to access it.
Yeah, wow.
And and the power stations own that land, and they allow it to occur and fund the maintenance to allow it to happen, which is, it's good. That's what you want. Hey, you want that kind of mutual understanding that we're not just workers or people that pay for things. We're also people that want recreation and community and these other things And that comes back to this hunting thing. It's like, I think some private property owners understand there's more to it than just getting someone out to shoot a few ferals. They can see that, and they want to be a part of the community. And maybe they're like a 6th generation farmer, and that they used to have families living on their properties who worked on those properties, and now they have nobody in these derelict houses. It's just them, and all their sons and daughters are off at, somewhere else. And suddenly this person goes, please, can I come on and do this? And they go, you know what? Yeah, great. And just tell me how you go, and just do these 3 or 4 rules, follow these rules, and I'm happy for you to come, and let me know how you go with it. And they kind of live through you a little bit. I reckon that's pretty cool. I've had a couple of properties like that. I miss them, I tell you. I haven't had as much success in the south yet, even though the deer are everywhere, apparently. Hunter Valley, I got onto some good spots, and I was regularly, like, even after work, like, clock off a bit early, jump in the car, 45 minutes up the road, hike another half an hour, 45 minutes, and get onto deer. Like, there's nothing better than that. Like, it was awesome.
Dream.
But
love that.
Dream's over. I'll find another place. Maybe somewhere. Yeah.
Have you thought about spearfishing now on the coast?
I've got a few mates. I took up another hobby that I started doing, but I did a bit of AFL this season when I moved down here.
Oh, yeah.
And a couple of the boys go out. All of them are mad into like fishing, and some of them spearfish off an island off the coast. So I will go out with them one time. It's harder with a young baby, but
yeah,
that's kind of, it's like, yeah, it's the aquatic form of hunting, really, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I don't know if anyone else has done it, but I've only thought about it. I haven't done it, but it fits within my ethos, which is to try and do everything kind of once and know how to do it.
Probably become addictive, and then next minute more money.
And that's it. I'd rather just do it with somebody else who already has the gear. And maybe when it's warm enough, just to go with flippers and togs rather than having to fully gear up. I don't really want to
free divings. Yeah, stuff having to buy wet tanks and that and gear but we're subject to pretty bad weather off our coast, to be honest. So summer obviously is a good time to go spearfishing, but then we'll get mass amounts of seaweed come in off the ocean during that time, and then it just clogs up the water and no good. So you sort of,
and the great white sharks.
Yeah, they're all right. To be honest, like if I was in deeper than 9 meters, and I don't think any of us could dive 9 meters, but 9 meters I'd be worried, but anything less than that.
They can come into like 500 mil of water.
Yeah, but so great whites attack from underneath, actually, man. So if you see them like on the surface, you're good. And typically they need a bit of depth, obviously, to attack from underneath. So when they dive, then you're in shit. And you can't see them.
Just punch them in the nose.
I mean, you're saying logical things, right?
Yeah, that's right.
I'm still like, fuck that.
You got a spear gun, man. Just fucking spear it. And knife it. Walk out the water with it draped over your shoulders like a fucking real man.
Crack a VB,
Would you Josh? Would you just tear your shirt off and eyeball the shit out of it? And show
mate, I got no shirt on to go into the water with, mate. What is it?
Mate, you should write a book, The World According to Josh.
That's it. No, give him one liner that's not teeth. These are teeth.
That's right. Shark, isn't that French for pussy?
Oh, bloody hell. All right. Sorry, before we wrap this up, I need to hear the story about, there's 2 things we need to round this out, Rob. We need the story about someone accidentally being shot.
Mm-hmm.
And then we need some bush poetry.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Right, that's a good way to finish. So my dad used to always tell me this story, and this is the only exposure I really had to hunting when I was younger, but he told me a story about how his my uncle, his brother, was the only one who had a license, and him and a couple of mates went driving out to Dubbo in Western New South Wales with beers. They went out to slay the beers, basically more than anything, but they were also meant to be hunting. And I think they just had like a few guns laid off on against the tree or something. And one of the blokes drinking around the campfire bumped this shotgun, and the gun went off and basically laid some slugs into the left shoulder of my uncle, and rendered him virtually unconscious. Like, and they were all very young blokes, like just, very young. And supposedly the conversation was had, okay, do we just leave him here? Because they didn't know what to do. Or do we go and get help? Because they knew they were going to get in trouble. So I think they ended up deciding to go and get help. They took him to the hospital. My dad eventually found out through the dad of one of the other kids, and him and the dad jumped in a car and drove all the way up to Dubbo. And that dad picked up all the other boys and took them back to Sydney. And my dad jumped into, my uncle checked himself out of the hospital, still had him in him, still had the slugs in him. Right up, his whole life. Jumped into the car, started driving. It used to take like an 8-9 hour journey. It was a huge journey back in the day. And then while they were driving, the muffler fell out of the base of the car. So then they had to bust a hole through the floor and tie a rope to it. My dad had to hold it the whole drive. And my uncle drove home, had slugs in him. He had him in him for ages. Yeah, I think forever. Yeah.
Wow.
Don't know if he ever got him taken out. Yeah, that's
outstanding.
That's what I learned about it. Is like, you go out and you shoot cans and drink cans, and that's about it. It wasn't much fun.
I mean, do you think that might be a reason you didn't get into it till later on?
Might be, yeah, it might be. I do remember my dad also one time going out hunting, and they were worried. He was scared of pigs because they told all these stories about boars, and they were hunting, and then this rabbit kind of suddenly busted up, and he like turned around and just let a shot off and just obliterated this rabbit. It was only 5 meters away. I was like, okay, this thing's bloody dangerous. Like, why would I go out and do that?
Yeah.
But that's what it comes down to, is just that confidence and time and patience with it, and start small and work your way up. It's a big thing for new hunters, man. Start with bunnies. Start with just start small and build up, because I think a lot of people go, yeah, I want to go hunt this big stag, big elk in America or something. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You haven't even shot a goat or a deer before.
Yeah, go on, start out, go on the progression, work your way up, I think.
Yeah. Love to start on elk. Jeez.
Yeah, but that would you're just starting at the high point. Like anything less than that, you'd be like, meh.
Nah, just hunt a bigger elk. Fuck.
But also, let's remember to drink responsibly when using firearms. This is quite relevant because we spoke about this last week, straight out the gates.
We did actually. Yeah.
Because it's one of those things, you want to enjoy a hunting trip away, but there's going to be alcohol involved generally. Be responsible and don't leave loaded shotguns leaning against trees.
Yeah, I think if you're going to get to that point, put them away. 1 or 2 with lunch, whatever. But if you're going to go overboard, pop them away. Best be safe.
Yeah,
Sweet.
That's it.
Your uncle is bloody lucky.
Oh yeah,
It was a tough nut. Yeah.
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 All right, Rob, have you got a little bit of bush poetry for us?
Oh, of course I do.
Oh,
Yeah.
let's
This
hear it.
It's a good way to finish, but thanks for having me on, and hopefully you find this as entertaining as I found it to write. But basically I wrote this one. I had a mate in Sydney who was a barista, and he was talking about all these crazy orders he gets every day. And I kind of went that's, good on you, mate. Like, that's really great that you actually do this for people who want their weird lattes and shit. So anyway, it's called Ode to the Barista.
Beautiful.
Now, let me tell you of a drink to which gives one the power to think, the elixir of the gods with caffeine content to keep you awake, an anti-sleep supplement. It's made from the roasted berries of the coffea plant and native to the tropical African subcontinent. Now, be you an Aussie, an Italian or Greek, I'm sure you know that it's coffee I speak. Coffee, held in awe and glory. Coffee, each day it's mandatory. That darkly coloured stimulant. It's served hot or cold, on preference. It can be slightly acidic and bitter to taste, but has a texture so creamy to compensate. I can see why in the 15th century this drink was traded with such envy. I'm obsessed. I'm addicted. I have one each morning, a second, a third, a fourth each day to keep myself from yawning. So I'll tell you a tale now to the missus and the mister. An ode it is to the great barista. And yes, you heard me right. I said it directly. The great barista, when spelled correctly. That noble profession, I admire it with awe. No, not those bloody idiots that study the law. The barista with an A. Do you think me weird? Yes, those hipsters with the long hair and the beard. Coffee's their art and none can upstage those tattoo-sleeved angels on a casual wage. For one to master the great art of coffee, great prizes should be awarded, or at least a trophy. But there is something that irks me and gets my goat. It makes me sick, bile in my throat, and it makes me sad and it breaks my heart the way we treat these masters of the dark art. Our orders were once so simple. I'll have an espresso or a short black or a long black or maybe a ristretto. I might have a macchiato with milk, please. I'd like to go. Or to get a bit fancy, I'll have a cappuccino. But we now seem to have flipped our order and our coffee intake has become broader. Can I have a cafe latte? Or I just might have an Australian invention, a humble flat white. Now, these kind of orders the barista will take and they'll barista away happily, but God forsake, you make an order that is unusual, that is complicated or somewhat cruel. Can I have mine with skim milk, please? Or goat's milk or almond's milk or from a tree? Can I have soy milk in mine, please? Because I'm lactose. Soy milk in your coffee? That's just fucking gross. Apparently now we're taking milk from a camel, but it's cow's milk for me and no other mammal. Can I have 2 sugars in mine, please, but make them raw? And what the bloody hell is stevia? That's not sugar at all. Can I have a turmeric latte with honey, please? A half strength with vanilla? All this stuff, it makes me quease. I mean, I'm all worked up and jacked and wired. I want mine extra hot and extra strong because I feel tired. Since when did humanity become so complex? It has me confused and it has me vexed. But those poor baristas, I guess, they do their part and they flourish the milk and make the coffee art. They make ferns and hearts and spiders' webs, and they make all these shapes in the coffee just for us plebs to show our friends and take photos for our Facebook and our Snapchat and our Twitter sideshows. And maybe I'm just simple and have no patience. But as I think about it more, it starts to make sense. I guess coffee does bring us all together in sunny days and on rainy weather. People of every colour, religion and nation, we have the barista to thank for their creation. Thank you.
Well, hey, outstanding.
Look, we can fucking play some random.
Outstanding, man. That was very, very clever.
Nice.
Oh.
Very well written, Rob. I like it.
Relatable, man. I used to own a cafe.
That was back when he was a hipster.
With a long hair and a beard.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, hopefully if someone's never actually read one of your articles, then that might give them a bit of an insight into your stylings. So, yeah.
Where can they find them, by the way? Because for all those who listen to this, where could they find your content and articles?
The best place is, I guess, the ADA magazines. But if you don't want to go and get into those and buy those, I do put them up on Instagram. I've actually got them in that, I don't know what any of these things are called, but, your story boards at the beginning of your Instagram, you have the different storyboards. I have put them up there. They'll send me the copies of them after I write them.
Yep. So
I put them up. So that's kind of the best place. One day I might get around to doing a website or put them all together in some compendium or book, but who has the time for that either? I'm not really. I say I'm a writer, but am I? I don't know.
It's technically published work, isn't it?
Correct, it is.
Yeah, it's published. Yeah, it's published for sure.
There you go.
So, and your handle is the Venison Diplomat, isn't it?
Yeah, at the _venison_diplomat. That's it.
Excellent. Well, everyone, check out Rob on Instagram. Hopefully you can read a few of his articles as well. I hope you enjoy. Thank you, Rob, for being very generous with your time.
Thanks, mate.
Yeah, very much appreciated.
Been great to have you on the
Thank you,
podcast.
boys. Hopefully we've probably hit the record of podcast length. So
not quite. Nearly there. We're nearly there.
next time.
Yeah, we'll get there. Maybe we'll have to have you back on some other time if you'll.
You know where to find me.
Excellent.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, we'll leave it there. Rob, thank you. And tune in next week.
Next week we got an episode with 3 of us. Hitting it off again.
We do. No guests next week.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks, Ryan.
Just for those following.
Back to the normal format.
Back to the normal format next week. So, for all those listeners out there, tune in for the hilarity. We do have a few more guests to come as well in this season. Thank you all very much for listening.
All right.
Thanks, dude and dudettes, and thank you very much, Rob.
Yep, been absolute champion. Ladies and gentlemen, peace.
Catch you next week.
Gotcha. G'day, dude and dudettes. Josh here. Do you find it hard to keep your long, hard barrels free from gun STDs? Maybe you need a clean out of your bore. If this is you, jump on over to highcaliber.com.au and use the promo code SENDITMATE to receive a 10% discount on all your gun cleaning needs. And remember, it's sexy to support Australian-made products. Everyone here at Send It Mate uses High Caliber, and we can promise you that it'll keep your firearms free from those pesky gun STDs.